We're going to start with The Creation of a Clothing Brand by Ellis Hoisington.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to ask you all to do something really quick. If you could look to your left, look to your right, look around you at the people sitting next to you, and notice what they're wearing. For many of us here today, the clothes we're wearing were designed by a committee with the primary purpose of maximizing global sales. The fabric was likely cut in a high-speed factory, and the garments were shipped by the tens of thousands. Most of you all know of this as fast fashion. It's convenient, it's accessible, it's the world we live in today. But this does come at a cost. Is anybody willing to hazard a guess at how much waste is generated by fast fashion every year? Just throw a number out there. 100 million? That's a good guess. Every year, fast fashion generates roughly 34 billion pounds of textile waste from the United States alone. This is because these clothes weren't necessarily made to last. But more than that, this clothing can feel anonymous. It wasn't made specifically for you. Now, I'm not saying this to criticize what any of you all are wearing. I can't see all of you right now, but I can see the first two rows, and y'all look great. And fast fashion as a whole is a much bigger issue than this room alone. Rather, I'm hoping to point out to you all that as consumers, we've been conditioned to accept standardized instead of special. I wanted to provide an alternative. I wanted to create clothing that is tailored specifically to the individual, their dimensions, as well as their unique styles and aesthetics. The name of the brand comes from the Latin root aves, meaning bird. To me, that represents flight and the ability to move beyond what is commonplace today and to look at fashion and clothing as a whole from a higher perspective. Now, to be completely honest with you all, this project didn't start as a senior project. It began as a spark of inspiration during my freshman year. It began with a conversation with my sister, Ava, whom some of y'all may know. She said something about creating a clothing brand that to her was a throwaway comment. It was a whimsical pipe dream, but to me, it was a spark. We worked on it briefly, but as she left for college, that spark was put on the back burner. The thing about inspiration, though, is that sometimes it needs to be lit more than once to fully catch. That second spark came from our old classmate, Matthias, making a similar comment to that of my sister's, and whose own drive for creation reminded me of the unfinished vision that I'd left behind. Now, this project has gone through many phases and taken several different forms. The idea I had when I first began and what it has grown into today are two very different things. Initially, my passion was for the design process. I was excited to conceive unique pieces, have those designs realized by a manufacturer, and then sell the results. However, this sort of pivoted around a year ago when a lot of things were pushing me in a new direction. Tariffs, lack of satisfaction with manufacturers, along with the realization that if I wanted to create something new, it must be exactly that, new. Anyone can slap a logo on a t-shirt and make a clothing brand. And while there's nothing wrong with that, if I wanted to stand out, if I wanted to be truly unique, I had to do something different. This brings me to the final and most important reason I decided to switch from manufacturer-based to commission-based clothing. And that is, if I've learned anything during my time here at Waldorf, it's that we all have the ability to create anything. So I decided to take it into my own hands to realize my vision. Now, for any brand, you need two things. You need a problem, and you need a solution. Usually it's helpful if you're the one offering that solution. The problem in this case is essentially what I've laid out for you all so far in this presentation. Fast fashion's impact on the environment, along with the anonymity and the lack of individuality in the idea of a logo being slapped on a mass-produced t-shirt. To me, the clothing industry feels like it's on a treadmill. It's moving very quickly, but not going anywhere new. I wanted to offer a solution that was completely unbound by those constraints. To do that, I had to look at fashion from a higher perspective. I wanted to find a way to rise above the noise of the standard brand. I wanted to create something that wasn't just a product, but a symbol of that independence. A brand that feels less like a machine and more like an artistic expression of the soul. So I'd like to introduce you all to my brand, Aveon. So now I had a name, I had an idea, a vision that I had to bring into reality. Fortunately for me, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, but I'm actually not the first Hoisington to come through this school. And being the last in a long line of Hoisingtons here at Waldorf certainly has its perks. The most important in this case was the sheer diversity of talent I had available to me in my inner circles alone. Finding a mentor for this project was easy. Maybe even too easy, because as y'all can see, I did end up with two. I worked with my cousin Bennett, who's here tonight, a SCAD graduate with a degree in user experience and design, to build the brand identity, the logo, and the website. To help with the physical construction, I turned to my sister Alex, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it tonight. She's been to school for sewing and garment construction, so she was a massive help on the technical side of the process. With their guidance, I was able to split my workflow into two distinct worlds, the digital and the physical. The first was the digital. I worked with Bennett to take my rough ideas and turn them into a professional identity. I don't exactly remember how Bennett and I started talking about this project, but I do remember that one day we hopped on a call and he looked over my current designs for the brand. And what y'all see on the TV right now is essentially all I had, along with some poorly designed mock-ups and samples from manufacturers. So with him, we took this lettering logo that you see across the top, and were able to turn it into this. We then took this logo and turned the A into a smaller icon logo. He helped me pick a color palette of the brand, landing on a vibrant sky blue, which was a nod to our AV's namesake and the overall vision of the brand, for a primary color, balanced by a charcoal and a white. There was much more work and plenty of time spent on this phase of the project that I just don't have time to go into depth on. But through this process, I learned the logistics of web design and how to form a cohesive set of brand aesthetics. Now that I had a brand identity, a website, and a story, I had to bring it to life. So now I want to show you all how I actually brought my concepts into the physical world through sewing. With the guidance of my sister Alex, I set out to create two example pieces, essentially to demonstrate what I'm capable of, both to myself and to my future potential customers. I ultimately decided to create a pair of jeans as well as a hoodie. In this case, I was effectively my own first customer, so I got to design pieces that felt authentic to me. However, this brought me to the question, what do I actually want these pieces to look like? This led me back to a previous idea that I had had for this brand before switching to commission-based clothing. Stylistically, I've always been very drawn to the contrast between ancient artwork and modern minimalism. I love the intricate, detailed nature of older art forms, but I wanted to ground them using the clean lines and straight edges you see in modern streetwear. For these first two pieces, I initially had much grander plans for embroidery, but due to the limitations of my sewing equipment, I did have to scale those back just a touch. But to incorporate that mix of ancient art with modern minimalism, I designed a Chinese dragon wrapping around the brand logo and embroidered it onto the pocket of the jeans, which y'all can see over there. Now, these processes were difficult and filled with obstacles, as there's much more to sewing a piece of clothing than meets the eye. I learned the hard way that jeans and hoodies are slightly more difficult to sew than the pajama pants we made in middle school. Some things I learned were just small tips that I picked up from Alex, like knowing to cut the selvage edge of the denim when laying out your fabric pieces to avoid warping. Other things were larger. Staying mentally focused on the sewing piece can be difficult, especially when sewing for hours at a time. But at one point, I guess I stopped thinking about what I was doing, and I accidentally sewed my pant legs together in the middle, accidentally creating a sort of large denim monopant skirt kind of situation that took a solid hour for me to fix and seam rip all the seams. But despite my troubles and difficulties, of which there were many, I was able to end up with these two pieces that I'm overall very happy with. Thank you to Xander, my model, for modeling for me. I know that it's difficult to see these from out there, so after the presentations, we'll be all out in the hallway, and please feel free to come and take a look closer. And if you have any questions about decisions I made during the process, like why I put silk in the hood or why I put a notch in the hem of the jeans, I'd be happy to answer those questions as well. Now, some of the more business-minded people in this room may be wondering, is this business model scalable, profitable over the long term? And to be completely transparent with you all, the answer is no. But ultimately, I believe that that's what makes it special. Because these products were designed specifically for each individual customer, there's little way to effectively scale it. The goal of this brand is not to generate me profit. I define my prices simply by the cost of fabric materials along with the time of labor that I've spent on it. For me, this is a passion project that I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to share with you all tonight. And for me, the love of creating new things with a purpose and a vision behind it that I believe in is really all I can ask for. At the end of the day, however, the brand is based around commissions from customers. So if any of you all would like to request a piece, feel free to contact me through my website, which y'all can find through this QR code now, or feel free to come up to me after the presentation. We can schedule a call, and from there, we'll design the piece together based on your style and how you want it. I'll take your dimensions so it's built for you specifically, and I'll make it. Like I said, it's not a scalable business model because the moment it scales, it becomes the very thing I was trying to move away from. It loses what makes it unique, the fact that the clothes are made for you and you alone. In a world that wants everything to be faster, cheaper, more anonymous, choosing to make something by hand is a bit of a step outside of the norm. It's a choice to value the person over the product. My project, Aveon, is a testament to slow fashion. The idea that a garment is worth the time it takes for one person to make it right. I'd like to give a huge thank you to my cousin Bennett and my sister Alex. Without their mentorship, these ideas would still just be sketches in a notebook. Thank you to Amy, Dr. Lau, Miss Adams, Dr. O, and Mr. Phillips for all of their help. Thank you to my dad for his help with programming the embroidery on the sewing machine, and to my whole family for supporting this whimsical pipe dream until it became a reality. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and thank you for taking a look at my vision for what fashion can be. What questions do you all have? Yes?
In this project, we covered a lot of aspects of business. What was your favorite of all this, and are you pursuing your favorite or any other part?
My favorite aspect of the business? I would definitely say the designing process, the digital design process of coming up with logos and mock-ups and designing how I want the pieces to look was definitely my favorite part, and I certainly plan on including that somewhere in my life further on, whether it's product design or something else, but I definitely am pursuing that. Any other questions? Yes? Why did I put silk in the hood? That's a good question. It started out as a conversation with my friend and classmate Adonis, who was talking to me about his silk bonnets that he wears for his curly hair, and I sort of had the idea, why not put it on the lining of a hoodie? Now, as I was making the hoodie, I did sort of learn the why not. It's because silk is a very slippery and hard to work with material, especially when you're combining it with something like terry, French terry cotton, which is the rest of the material for the hoodie. But I am sort of happy with how it came out, and I think it will look good. Any other questions? Yes? My most valuable skill gained from this project? That's a tough question. I'm not really sure. I'd have to say that the ability to commit myself to a project, no matter what it is, and commit fully 100% and get it done. Like, I spent multiple very late nights up sewing these pieces, and I'd say that's the most valuable thing I learned. Yes, Amy? Right. Yeah, my favorite aspect of it. Sort of like I mentioned, the digital process of creating mock-ups and logos and the design of the idea and vision behind what the brand means is my favorite part of the process. Because something that Bennett was always very adamant on is that the message behind the business is more important than the business itself, in a way. But yeah, any other questions? Yes? The, That's a great question. Yes, I have worn them, and yes, there are things I would change. Some things I did change, like, I'm sure y'all can't see it from back there, but on the jeans, the bottom hem of the jeans, these jeans are barrel leg jeans, and I didn't love the way that they came together at the bottom, so I cut a notch in the hem to open it up and then sewed those two back up to sort of change the way it sat and fit on myself. And overall, if I were to do these again, I think I would do them more or less the same way, with just a couple tweaks to fit my measurements that now that I've made them, I know are there. Any other questions? Yes, Dr. O? I did not record how long it took me to make each piece, but roughly the jeans probably took anywhere between like 18 to 22 hours. The hoodie was less, maybe like 10 hours. Yeah, Dr. Stotts.
I really appreciate your criticism of fast fashion. It is truly a disturbing phenomenon. And I know that in addition to your own brand, I know thrifting is an option.
Yeah.
What other brands would you recommend for us when we're out there shopping for clothes that we should be looking for instead of a fast fashion brand instead?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, so I think thrifting is an incredible option. Honestly, any upcycled or recycled clothes is essentially what you're going to be looking for, because the primary issue with fast fashion is the fact that it's bought, worn once or twice, and then thrown away. So anything you can do to avoid that cycle is a step in the right direction. Any other questions? Yes, Hallie? That's a good question. So it would depend on the. Yes, I'm sorry. She was asking how much it would cost to produce a pair of jeans like this. And if I had to price these, the fabric and thread and material cost was probably around $30 to $40, and then plus whatever time I've spent building them, I would probably charge around $80. We'll see. It would be a discussion with the customer, and we would come up with something that we agree is fair. Yes? Yes, I would certainly have interest in upcycling clothes. Initially, that was one of the first aspects I hoped to do in this brand, and I just wasn't able to get to it for time purposes. But my dad had a bag of old jeans with all of the knees sort of like, the pants were a little bit torn up. And I was hoping to sort of cut those apart and turn it into a jacket or something of that sort. But yeah, certainly. Yeah? The patterning and oh yes, so pattern making as a whole is sort of a whole process on its own. That could be a senior project in and of itself. For this project, I just took pre-made patterns and like sort of adapted them and tweaked them into my what I was looking for. But creating a whole new pattern from scratch is a very difficult thing to do, and it just wasn't the monster I was willing to tackle for this project. Yeah, Bennett. Like how to create a website? It's difficult. The templates that Shopify gives you are very bare bones, and if you want to pay for the built-in apps, you can do that. But personally, what I think is one of the better moves, it has the option to put in your own custom code, and so you can get like Claude or an AI to sort of help you generate code to create the website and how you'd like it to look, and then put that into Shopify instead of using their baseline template. Any other questions? Oh, yes? Is there a brand I would give competition to? I don't think so, because, I'm making one piece at a time for one person at a time. I don't think I would be taking a large corner of the market out of any single brand. So to answer your question, no, I don't think so. Yes? I don't plan on doing it for a living. I do plan on doing it as a hobby and passion project over the rest of this summer, and hopefully I'm able to continue it into college. Who taught me to sew? Miss Black did. Yes? One more question? Okay. Right. The fabric sourcing was a very difficult thing to do, especially here in Austin. There are very few fabric stores, at least for like apparel type of fabric. I was talking to my sister who's from LA, and she had like all kinds of like warehouse outlets and stuff that she could just go get very cheap fabric from. So for me, I had to order it online. And I was able to make these jeans out of like a 2-yard by 2-yard square of denim. So the cost per yard was like sort of high for denim, but because I was able to sort of save space so much, it was only like $40. But yeah, Thank you, guys.